On this episode of On the Set, I'm checking out The Nun 2, the sequel to The Nun, and another chapter in the Conjuring franchise. This one brings back Tasia Farmiga as Sister Irene to face off yet again against the demon Valak. Let's get into it. The film opens up in 1956 France. An altar boy is putting some wine up on a shelf inside a church when a dark presence looms about. Suddenly, the glass containing the wine shatters and the boy runs. He tells the priest what happened, and then the priest gets thrown into the air and set on fire. After that, we go to Italy where we meet Sophie, a girl attending a boarding school. She gets picked on by the other students, and even her friend, the school's handyman, can't intervene. Oh, and the handyman turns out to be Maurice, from the first movie. He takes a liking to Sophie's mother, the chick from Narnia, who teaches there. Sometime later, the cardinal arrives to Irene's convent to task her with investigating a new string of deaths that seem to be similar to the ones from the first movie. So she begrudgingly heads to France, and her new friend, Sister Deborah, comes along. After that, a girl shows up to the school to deliver something and runs into Maurice, who's revealed to have been possessed by Valak. As the girls bully Sophie again, they trick her into going into a chapel, which has been chained off and abandoned after the headmistress of the school's son died in there. Inside, the girls tell Sophie that a goat on the stained glass window is actually the devil and that he watches you when the sun reflects off the glass, allowing a red light to appear. Anyway, the girls lock her in there, and she encounters Valak, but she gets away. Wanting to know for herself what happened in the chapel, the headmistress, or whatever she's called, goes in there and looks around, only to be killed by an apparition of her own son. Meanwhile, Irene and Deborah visit an old historian who tells them the story of Valak and how the demon was once an angel. Also that this time, it's after an ancient relic called the Eyes of St. Lucy. St. Lucy was a girl a long time ago who got burned by a group of pagans in a bonfire. But somehow, during that, she didn't get burned. Then the pagans gouged her eyes out. The eyes are said to have great power and were buried in an old monastery. Well, as it turns out, the monastery is now the boarding school. So Irene and Deborah head there to find the relic. And here's where things get weird. So at the school, the goat from the window jumps off and becomes real, chasing the girls and Sophie's mother all over the place. Then Maurice shows up and does the same. Irene gets there, and they have a huge battle with Maurice, but the demon is too strong. They discover that the relic is buried inside the chapel, and that the red light from the window was meant to guide them to it. So now, with the relic in hand, Irene faces off against Valak. The demon throws her into the air and sets her on fire, but surprisingly, Irene does not burn. We then find out that she's a descendant of St. Lucy. So Irene prays, and Valak gets washed away with barrels of blessed wine, which disintegrates the demon. Following that, Maurice returns to normal, and things at the school resume, leaving Irene and Deborah to head back to Italy. Then, in a mid-credit scene, we see the Warrens at home when they get a phone call from Father Gordon, which then leads into The Conjuring 3. The end. I think this one was pretty good, way better than the first movie. It had some pretty good jump scares, and the pacing was alright. Also, I think the plot was really well written. Tasia Farmiga did a wonderful job reprising the role of Irene, and Maurice, well, he was just wild. Anyway, no, Valak's not dead, because of course after this one, The Conjuring 2 happens. Anyway guys, that was The Nun 2. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.